welcome back to the Watch and Cut channel. So today we got another episode by my good buddy Troy the Bad Monkey, who provided me this knife for you guys to all check out and enjoy, as well as myself. This is a budget line of knives. This is the first Kubey I have ever checked out, so this is going to be interesting.
It's about time.
Now, Kubey is a knife brand that you can find on Amazon. You can find relatively quite a few places. They're very inexpensive. I don't know, $30+. But they do make some pretty expensive ones too. They get up into the $200–300 range when you get in their premium line. I don't know the actual price of this guy. I'm sure it was sub $100. I looked on Amazon. These are long discontinued. But these were quite interesting when I read some of the reviews on Amazon. Some of the guys are like, I know you're doubtful, but just do it. They're really well made. That's kind of the gist of this thing. It's really well priced and it's really, really well made. As a matter of fact, it's kind of killer for sub $100 type knife. Now the blade is D2 steel, very classic, budget brands type steel choice, but good stuff nonetheless. It's got this really nice heavy stone wash on it. You can see your little D2 steel nomenclature there, and that's it. And I like that a lot with this knife. There is very little markings on this thing. You can see the Kubey logo right here, but that's it. And this thing's got a very nice, thin, full flat grind design, Tonto profile. You can see it's very shallow. So I think as far as a cutting tool, this thing is ground really nice. Now, it's gonna be right there staring at you. I'm not gonna pretend like we're not gonna talk about the wave, but this is kind of a really interesting design as far as waves are concerned. And let's just get into that part right now. So usually a wave knife is something actually developed by Emerson Knives. Ernie Emerson actually designed it, where he had a bit of a wave kind of sticking out up the top of the blade. And what that would do is it would act in a knife fight as a blade catch, is what he designed it for. I know that's really crazy thinking, he designed them for special forces. He gave them out to those guys, and then they put them in their pocket. And when they were pulling the knife out of their pocket in a certain way, this, blade guard caught onto the seam of their pants and would deploy.
Badass. It is badass.
Without them even realizing it. And so they called Ernie and they said, did you even realize that this does this? And it turned into a thing, and hence the Emerson wave was born for deployment purposes, not for blade catches. So that is kind of a little history of how the Emerson wave came about from Ernie Emerson. Now let me get an example of what an Emerson wave traditionally looks like. Let's bring out a couple Emersons here. So other manufacturers adopt this feature, and this is a good example of a wave feature on a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Perfect example of another manufacturer using the Emerson wave. Now the typical Emerson wave is more like on this guy right here, the CQC 15. This guy here is exactly the position of usually where you'll find the blade catch or the Emerson wave. It's more towards the top of the blade. You don't really cut into the blade to accommodate that. You'll put it up at the top. And there's a really good reason for that too, because it's just that much higher up. So when you twist and pull the knife out of the pocket, it's gonna do its thing. Now, that being said, Emerson has kind of accommodated on some other designs, kind of like this one, where it's definitely really geared to deploy really quickly. Now, this is more of a combat design. As a matter of fact, this is called the Combat Fighter System.
That's badass, dude.
It's an old signature model that he released. Had this knife for years. I always really liked the look of it. So I kept it around. Kind of a rarer bird, I would say. But that is the max accommodation I would ever see an Emerson style wave ever done. This is weird.
This is super weird for me.
I mean, you can clearly see that the blade is a pretty traditional kind of a drop point Tonto design, right? But then when you take this out, it just completely changes the look of it. So I was really curious to see if it was even gonna work, which let's show you guys right over here in the corner. So as you can see, I'm gonna show you guys which way to deploy and not deploy the knife. Because depending on the way you twist it is how you can decide whether you want it to deploy out of the pocket or not. So, and that also is how you misfire it, thinking the knife is going to come out of the pocket, but it doesn't. So, but you can see when you're actually trying to use this Emerson wave, it works perfectly.
Tactical.
So that's kind of what's unique and different about this guy is, as you can see, it accommodated for the Emerson wave by removing part of the blade, which I think is kind of an interesting touch to the whole thing. It kind of makes it look more like a bottle opener, right? Like, and I'm sure it would work as one too. But yeah, kind of an interesting spin on the Emerson wave in my opinion. But if it doesn't affect functionality, then so be it. Next thing, the scales. The scales are really nicely milled out. You can see all the work that's been done on these. These have been very nicely designed to kind of make the butt of the knife appear thinner. Kind of like the way that they went with this whole thing. The little turbine titanium pivots are cool too. Just a lot of unique touches. This clip here is really cool as well. Kind of reminds me of a Hellraiser with the aspiration on the clip. Kind of neat there. And of course, my very favorite, the 3D gear backspacer design. I always love the way that those look. And they do add a little tiny bit of traction. Not really like you need a whole bunch, but if you squeeze down on it, you do feel it a little bit. And then you got this jimping traction right up here on the ramp.
Rib for your pleasure.
Which is quite cool. Looking at this blade, it just looks so weird because you have so much steel up here and then you just got very little right here. It's just, yeah, it is. It takes some getting used to. But it is a pretty mean looking mother, to be quite honest with you. Now, I don't think I mentioned the model number. It's the KU159. Kubey has this really, it's very much like, you know, Tucson knives where they designate them by numbers and it's very confusing. I would rather call it the waveless wave feature or whatever. Like, give it a weird name so people remember what it is. So anyways, but I do like the whole construction of the thing as well. It's just very nicely built. I gotta say, Kubey Knives is doing a really good job. I think most of my remarks are just based on aesthetics.
Even a mother could love that face.
And that's just really, honestly, subjective, you know? Everybody likes a different thing. I think this thing is kind of cool looking, though. The access to the liner here is great. It's actually well chamfered, especially more the budget line knives. I find this to be sharp most of the time. On this one, it's really actually very, very comfortable. So as far as the blade thickness here, we have 0.6 inches thick, pretty respectable, a little bit thicker than the average. Very nice thinly ground edge here with a sharpening choil that's appreciated as well. Very narrow, stabby little thin area here for the Tonto. Not too much reinforcement, which is good because this has substantial blade stock already, so that's nice. Full flat grind all the way to the top, so that's cool. I don't think any food or any items that you decide to slice with it is going to get hung up there, which is really nice. As far as the handle thickness, we have 0.56 inches thick, just a little hair above average, not really anything to really like scream about as far as thick. As far as the weight, this guy is 4.9 ounces. And I will say, as far as 4.9 ounces, that's, you know, the knife for the size of it really feels quite good, actually. It's not really all that heavy for its size. As a matter of fact, this Emerson right here with titanium liners and the G10 and everything is actually substantially heavier than this guy right here. So 4.9 ounces, I think, is not too bad considering the nice robust construction. And some knives just give that appearance that they just don't feel that heavy, and this is kind of one of those guys that just feels substantially lighter than that. So very good there. So the goods and bads, let's talk about it. The goods is it's going to be a very nice cutting tool. It's a very affordable knife. The Emerson Wave is kind of unique compared to other designs, and it does work quite well. The construction of the knife is really nice, and I do like the finish of the blade and all the liners that go along with it. I really like the 3D milled geared back spacer along with the nice kind of patterned clip here with the aspiration, and all the attention to the carbon fiber as far as all the milling's done. That's quite a bit of work for a knife that's sub $100. The action is great, very controlled, great flipping action. I would say moderately firm detent is how I would describe it. Everything seems to line up nicely. Everything from screws and all that good stuff is nice and flush. You can see the centering is dead on. It's got a nice positive click when you close it, and you got some nice robust hardware to go along with it. The less than desirable features of this knife, well, the milling is kind of crazy, and it might be a little too crazy for some. It does give it a lot of design, and it does give it a lot of comfort, but you know, it might work for some and not for others in the aesthetics department. The clip is really nicely designed, but I think it protrudes a little too far out. It's a little bit longer than it really had to be. I would like to see the clip maybe about this long. The back spacer is no complaint. Liners, no complaints. Yeah, right in here, no complaints as well. This is all really well designed. Another cool thing about this one is the flipper tab has this kind of jimping, but honestly, you don't feel any of it. Pretty much just a light switch. I mean, I think you could probably push button it if you wanted to, but I don't think it's really designed to do that. It's more basing its flipper design on the angle here, so you're gonna have to pull her back if you want a really nice, easy deployment. So overall in the design and everything, I think it's great. I think where this knife is gonna suffer as far as sales is just the aesthetics. It's for that right guy that's looking for something a little bit unique, different, and crazy. And as you guys know from the knives I've already reviewed from the Bad Monkey in the past, tends to be a lot of like self-defense orientated, like Tonto stabby designs, and I dig that. I really, really dig that.
For tactical reasons.
As a matter of fact, you can see I have some of my own self-design type knives right here, and that's kind of like the whole Emerson motif, right? Like these are all kind of good cutting tools, but you know, you got the self-defense thing in mind as far as the quick deployment, the kind of rugged, take it anywhere, the chisel ground so you can sharpen it on a freaking rock if you needed to, the self-lubricating nylon washers which have horrible action. Yeah, you know, all that stuff. The titanium liners that tend to stick a lot on a lot of Emersons, although this one I did send to them and had them fix it. I had to tighten it up with this really kind of smooth action, but kind of a little bit more of a flicker if you ask me, to really get the blade to center and everything to operate smooth. But you can see Emersons are not the greatest for the tolerance. I could probably play and wiggle around with this one and get it even a little bit more perfect. Seems to be leaning a little bit this way. Maybe not, I don't know. Kind of hard to tell, but the knife operates well and it's pretty damn close, so good enough. This one is kind of cool, actually. I should highlight since I have this one in the screen. You're gonna notice this one's got this like buttery action. Look at that, and look at that centering. It's dead on this one. Now, what's different about this one, other than the customizations to it, is this one's running on bronze washers. They're actually aftermarket that were made by somebody. I gotta ask the guy who I got the knife from, the Acuminous Edge, my coworker. But yeah, the bronze washers fixes all the problems on Emerson's. Imagine that. I wish Ernie would just go straight to bronze washers and forget the whole nylon thing. And I think a lot more people would be open to these. Anyways, that's gonna do it. Very cool knife. Thanks a lot for letting me check this out, Troy. I really like this Kubey. Very unique and interesting. And stay tuned for more from Troy. As a matter of fact, I think I got 3 more knives to do from him, or maybe 4, I can't remember. 3 more, I think. So we'll get through those. We'll get through some of Jiro's stuff, and we got more of my stuff coming, a few unboxing. As a matter of fact, I got an Emerson in the mail right now on the way, which we'll do an unboxing on. So stay tuned for that. So hope you guys liked the video. If you did, make sure you like it on the little tab. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because that always helps. And make sure you leave comments down below because I love chatting with you guys. I always try to reply to each and every single comment on my channel. Next thing, make sure you hit that bell icon so you know when the latest and greatest stuff comes out. And this is the Watch and Cut channel. Thanking Troy, and out.